welcome to Talking About. I'm John Griffith.
I'm Cara Kilduff. What up?
How you doing?
I'm great. I'm hyper, really hyper.
I know you're like so amped.
I had a little bit of soda, guys.
I had double root canal yesterday, so
Oh shit, that's right. Did you get painkillers?
I did, but I only took one yesterday, and I slept fine, and I haven't needed one today. But we had pizza before the show, and I found out how important chewing is.
Oh, are you okay?
I'm okay, doing well.
Okay.
Hanging in there. I will survive. Yeah, the crowns are going on in January just to spread it over next year's insurance.
Oh.
So fun.
Are you some kind of masochist?
Not today.
That's foreshadowing. Yeah, I'm good. Just rocking and rolling, and real hyper right now.
Anything interesting pop up in your feed lately?
Oh, I know what happened. I remember Mitchell Kaufman, painter,
Yes.
friend of the show. I was in his short film over the weekend.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he texted me. He's like, "What up, stud?" And that's like how we talk to each other. And I was like, "What up?" And then he said, "I need your face." And I didn't ask him anything about the film, what it was about. I just said, "Where do I need to be? What time? And what do I have to wear?" And he was like, "Oh, I'm so glad you made it." I was like, "Of course." And then I ran into him on the street today, and he was on the phone with somebody else who was there. Yeah, it was a lot of weird little
Yeah, the last thing I did like
kismet
that.
type things are
The
happening.
last thing I did like that you did also, but in separate days, with Andrew Singer, and I never saw the end result of what became of that. It's like we trekked out to Brooklyn on a rooftop,
Yeah.
and said some lines, and I never saw the.
I forgot about that.
I never saw what happened with it.
Andrew, if you're watching,
Let us know.
what happened? Yeah, so it was a lot of fun, and it was a nice group of people, and he's making. I still don't know what his short film is about. But his pieces were there, and I got to meet like some of the people who were in the paintings.
Okay.
Which was cool.
Very
Do you
cool.
remember the one with the? It was the one that was titled "For the First Lady," and it was the model wearing the dress.
I'm blonde.
Oh God, Jonathan. Anyway, I got to meet the guy who designed and made the dress, and
Very cool.
he was amazing. And I hope I run into him again because. Yeah, I was bad. I was laughing a lot, and when
That's good.
I shouldn't have been. But it was a good time.
Well, talking about unintentional laughter, have you seen the South Dakota anti-meth campaign?
Yes.
Okay, well, we have a couple of pictures of that for the audience
So dumb.
that I want to show. And whenever Mr. Director's ready, you can pop them up. Meth, I'm on it.
This is so unfortunate.
Well, we have a couple more.
Ugh,
So,
that's horrible.
yeah, meth, we're on it.
Guys, like whoever they hired to do this campaign did this on purpose.
I don't know. I mean, if they really wanted to use that slogan, there's one much more realistic one that they could have that we have right here. So let's, there. That would be perfect. That is truth in advertising right there.
Please
But we're not political at all on this show.
Poster.
Oh, damn. Wow. Well done.
Thank you.
Well done.
Sometimes I get it right.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I saw that this morning, and I almost spit my coffee out. I was like, seriously? You guys have... I was going to say another word I shouldn't say. You know the one. Mm-hmm. Anyway.
Well,
Do you want to, like...
yeah, we have a lot going on
Yeah,
tonight.
we have a really great show for you guys tonight. So, personal friend of mine and friend of the show, Stormy Leather, is here. But wait, and joining us is filmmaker, director, like, you're a jack of all trades. You get shit done. Astrid Ovalles, I said it right?
Wow, that's the first time that's ever happened.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, because you know, in a past
you.
life, I was
You
Puerto
tried.
Rican.
Yeah, okay, that's
Yup,
fine.
that double L,
That
son.
makes sense.
Anyway, welcome to the show.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you.
We brought you on because Astrid just finished her latest film, which is awesome. I watched it last night, and I have to watch it again, and you guys should all watch it. I mean, if you're like interested, like you should just watch it. Anyway, it's called Road of Bygones, and can you give us like a Reader's Digest synopsis?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
So it's basically a dark comedy about a lesbian couple who reconnects with an estranged sister of one of the women in the couple. And they set off on a road trip to recover the ashes from their dead mother, who was abusive and an alcoholic and kind of wacky. So the point of the movie is just to show the dynamic between the three women. One of them is, kind of vanilla, but then we find out she's not really. And then the two women who are in the relationship are lesbians, and they're in a BDSM couple, DS couple, domination and submission. So one is a dom and one is a submissive woman. And basically, the one character, my character, has to come out again as a dom, So it's a story about basically dark comedy, family drama, road trip, gay stuff, sexy things, kinky stuff.
Camping.
Yeah, camping.
The Grand Canyon.
Yeah, nature.
No, wait, that was one of my favorite scenes, though, just because you guys, there were so many, you wrote the screenplay.
I did, yeah.
There are so many good lines in there.
Thank you. I'm glad you think so.
Because I was taking notes, just writing things down and just writing, ha,
Yeah.
next to it. Let's see, that one line, I mean, it's so lesbianic that when you guys are in the woods and you went out to, your character went out to go pee, and the sister and the girlfriend are like, does she have a fanny pack? Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's
practical.
I know, but you know what? It was so perfect fanny pack because it was so big and stupid.
And hideous, and just completely hideous.
But wait, and then you pee on your pants, and you're taking your pants off, and that made me laugh because here she is, like squatting in the woods, taking this off with this giant fanny pack. I mean, it's hard to see it, but you can see the outline of it, like the outline of the ridiculousness. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Anytime I've peed in the woods, I've always had this fear of like snakes biting my ass.
Yeah,
So
they say that there are worms that can crawl up your urine and go to your urethra.
Seriously?
That's what they said in Grey's Anatomy.
So it must be true.
It has to be science.
Yeah. It has
That's
science.
where I get my medical information.
Me too, Stormy.
Is it?
I have no idea. I'm more worried about pissing on my feet, to be honest. So
Okay.
that's
She's fine with the worm up her urethra.
Oh, so one of the things I really liked about the way you described the relationship in the movie, aside from it was a dark comedy, it was really good, was what was I gonna? There was a line that I wrote down. Oh, the two sisters were talking about. The older sister was like, "Why are you showing off in front of me?" Mm-hmm. Because Astrid's character had done something with her partner, and it kind of shocked the sister. And it was when you guys were in the tent and you were sleeping, and Allie was asleep. And you said, well, I don't know, maybe I'm trying to show you my weird. Mm-hmm. I loved that line.
Oh, thank you. It's true. I mean, we often become children when we're around people we love, even though we're adults. And I think we do it to make it easier on them, So often we have to share things about ourselves. I mean, I don't know, I'm kinky and I'm into all kinds of shit, so I'm always coming out to people just random. They don't even ask. Sometimes I'm just like, oh yeah, I got whipped last night, and they're like, wait, what? You're at work.
Is that what happens at Target when you're like...
I just asked a random lady if she could, and she did. No, I'm just kidding.
And then it's like, thank you, Reverend.
Yeah, but I find like I'm constantly coming out with just stuff because I feel like we're always getting to know ourselves, and we're always exploring. I mean, at least I am, you have to keep your life interesting.
Well, you have to grow, otherwise you're...
Yeah, so then you have somebody you love.
and change.
Absolutely. And you change, and then you find that sometimes you change it up, maybe seasonal, maybe it's a seasonal kink you're into, like Christmas hats.
Pumpkin spice lattes.
Gotta get whipped, man. That pumpkin spice latte just,
I've been bad.
Makes me think of whips and chains.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, me too.
I mean, another aspect of the film that because it seems like, I don't know, I guess to some people it might seem like racy, this idea, but you made it, you not normalized it, but you just made it very matter of fact.
Yeah, well, that's how it is. I mean, I've been with my partner for 6 years, and we started off being very kinky. Like, when we had sex, it was like a whole thing, and it was like, the rope and the whole fucking, just a lot of shit going on, and then like cleaning and disinfecting after. It was a whole thing, and it was fun, for like the first year or two. And afterwards, I'm like, I'm just gonna use my hand. Fuck the paddle. Like, who's got time? So it does become normalized. Like, you do become just a person who enjoys things, who isn't a gimmick, who's not a cartoon character all the time. At least in lifestyle relationships, I think it's different in professional relationships or relationships that are fleeting. But in lifestyle relationships, I don't think that things are so gimmicky. I don't know. What do you think?
I think it depends. in my performance life, I've performed for parties, and anywhere from like a play party to straight up sex parties. So sometimes it is, and I think it's just in that party though. But I find that people that have had these relationships are very normal. And like you said, it starts off like we all do with sex. We start off pulling all of our best tricks out of the hat
You're
first.
like, let me show you what I got.
Let me show you. And you save a little bit for the second time, you know, if it goes well. But like, you know, and then after about a year or so, it kind of fizzles, not fizzles, but
It morphs into something.
yeah, it changes.
Right.
And you're not always just trying to impress each other now, and instead you're actually trying to please each other and
It's
like,
about pleasure
and
not
be
about
on the same page.
Yes.
Whereas when you first meet a person, I think it's more of just like,
Yeah.
you can do that, well, I can do this.
Reel them and keep them.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of that at play, no matter what you're into or if you're into anything at all. So I think it also goes with, we were talking about earlier, I think we were going to ask you if you were ready to about, you know, the issue that some have with the BDSM.
Yeah, you were saying like you got catching a little bit of flack from. Sorry, but it made me angry.
You and me both.
Because I mean I don't know who wrote, you know, was saying basically turning you down, but kind of getting on a high horse of what was it? They work with young queer people or something.
Yeah, they said that they. I kind of skimmed the message because when a sentence begins with, in the interest of transparency, I kind of just check out.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm gonna not read this whole thing.
It was a lot of
words. It's gonna kind of. I was like, this is not okay with me already. So.
Yeah.
So then I just kind of said, okay, she doesn't want it. And then I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about how many lesbian movies who are made by men and who are made by people who are not gay or who have no idea of what it's like to be gay. You know, lesbian movies who are marketed for lesbians. There's a lot of queer baiting and stuff with Angelina Jolie and Michelle Pfeiffer to get me. I was gonna see Maleficent and masturbate to it without any of this. You know, like, why do you have to do this? Like, I was there. So I feel like that kind of take us for fools, and so it upsets me when they will promote work that doesn't really benefit the gay community, but then work that does benefit the gay community, they're kind of like, you know what, I'm too good for this, or I'm above this in some way, as if the way that they have sex, the way that they have relationships and so on are morally greater.
Some of the earlier things that you had mentioned, the projects that are done outside of the community are not geared to the community, they're geared to straight white males.
Yeah.
And that's who they're trying to titillate, and that's who they're trying to tell a story to, and that's fair but not fair.
Well, and at best you get pandered to.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and I feel like they do that with, you know, female entertainment to begin with, or female-made films, movies, or whatever. I feel like they tend to try to pander to us.
Yeah.
Like, oh, here's your girl movie now. You're like, no,
Here's Carol.
But but what we need is people in those situations to tell those stories. We don't need straight men to tell stories about lesbian women.
Right.
Well, the thing that irritated me the most when you had told me about that was that this person was judging the way non-queer people judge us.
That's the thing. That's the
I
thing.
found that so angrily ironic, and using young people as like, well, I'm protecting them from this. Well, what about like just like us and our community?
Being protected from.
What are you protecting us from, and why are you deeming it bad or whatever? What about that young person who might actually be interested in some form of kink? Who are you to be a gatekeeper?
Exactly.
And also, the other piece of that really irritated me was that this person wasn't even helping out another lesbian, another woman.
Yeah.
We're not lifting each other up.
What really pissed me off was what she said. It goes against her feminist.
Yeah.
And first of all, I was like, first of all, do you know how hard I had to work to find female directors, a female cinematographer, a female, unit producer, a female producer? All of our producers are female. Our cinematographer is a woman. Our first AD was a woman. Our second AD is trans. I have to dig so deep because these people don't get jobs, so sometimes they don't have reels, sometimes they don't have the funds to promote themselves. So you have to really look at what they're doing and see their worth. It's kind of like raw talent, you know, because they don't have everything pristine.
So
the way
you're
you find
taking
somebody else.
like huge chances on
Absolutely,
people.
and I'm paying them. I'm giving them a chance to get experience, to come into positions of leadership. What is more feminist than that? Even if the movie was crazy and you thought it was wild and it was completely, I mean, I've seen French films that will just fucking blow your head right off. But, you know, it's fiction.
Yeah.
Even if you disagree with it,
And also-
you can still talk about it.
Also, first of all, from what I recall, this isn't a children's movie.
Right.
It clearly says that
Say, would you
Second
give
of all,
this to your
you
children?
also have like preteens and stuff reading crap like what was that? 50 Shades of Crap. I mean, Grey. And you have them reading that, and you're okay with that. But when it comes to two women doing this and it being consensual,
Exactly.
That was the other thing about
Yeah.
the film. You made it so abundant, like, I'm getting all like, my Irish is flaring up, but like you made it abundantly clear there was consent around everything.
consent is sexy, folks.
But everything that occurred in the film, there was consent.
Yes.
You
That
made that
is-
very clear, and
that's
I
why it was
appreciate that you
important.
did that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's important. And if,
was
first of all, I
responsible.
never asked to promote the film to children or teenagers, but teenagers are sexually active and they have an interest in sex and they may be discovering kinks and things that they are interested in. So why not see it in a positive way and use it as an opportunity to talk about
Rather
consent.
than, you know, you porning it and,
Right.
you know, and seeing
Exactly.
it in a violent way or in a, you know,
Yeah.
we've all seen that.
I
Yeah.
think that person really lost an
know.
opportunity.
Yeah.
I think so too, and it upsets me because I think a lot of people are constantly looking for material. I've met a tremendous amount of people who are kinky, who don't want to say that they're kinky, who don't want to say, I have a foot fetish, or I like pain. I like
Perhaps the
being
person who sent that is
Yeah.
afraid of that side of themselves,
It could be. It could be.
which a lot of times is. I mean, that's a lot of homophobia in general is a result of
So you think the lady
repress.
doth protest too much?
Quite possibly. Quite possibly.
Secretly wants to speak.
Yeah. She wanted to piss you off, so you'd be like, come here.
Yeah, she really wanted to
Well,
fuck her
the
up.
human nature, I mean, a lot of human nature is people are afraid of certain sides of themselves a lot of
Oh, yeah.
times.
Yeah, yeah.
And it comes out very often in the wrong way.
Sure. Yeah, when I was coming out, I was crazy Christian, and I was in theater. Yeah, my first year in theater, and there were orgies and girls kissing girls. I went to an awesome high school that had all kinds of stuff, and I just wanted to act. And all of a sudden, I hear about orgies and these parties.
Did it blow
and
your
women.
Christian mind?
Well, I was offended by it because I was so turned on by it that I was like, God could not possibly like this. You know, I'm Hispanic, so I gotta shit a lot of stuff. Yeah, I got a lot of the shit that I have to just get off of me at this age. So yeah, I mean, and then eventually a girl kissed me because I kept talking because I was so nervous by everything around me. And then she said, if you don't stop talking, I'm gonna kiss you. And I kept talking, and she kissed me, and look at me now, making movies about all kinds of gay shit. So you may very well be right, sir.
Did you hear that? She kept talking.
I kept talking, and she shut me
kept
right
talking.
up. It was hot. And now I'm queer.
Now look at you. You're a big-time movie director.
And we do have a couple of clips, so we're gonna get to our first clip. I kind of put them in some order, and then we never got to discuss it before the show. So hopefully they're in some reasonable type of order. So we'll take a look at that now.
Please,
Please.
I need to. I know. You need.
Yes. Come.
There's a lot happening in
Yeah.
that clip.
That's my intro, yeah. I wanted to do a few things with my opening scene. There are so many ways you could take that. I wanted to establish the fact that Bobby, the main character, uses sex to feel better about things in a way that is healthy. And I do that, perhaps. So I wanted people to know right away that she had the choice to walk away and feel grief and feel whatever it is she was going to feel, or she could have an orgasm. And she chose the orgasm. So right away I wanted to tell the audience that this is the kind of character this woman is. I wanted to show that they were kinky. I wanted to show that they were playing. I wanted to show that thing was easily interrupted and there was no hard feelings with the scene ending and so on. So I wanted to sort of summarize a relationship and tell people about them without having to talk it all out. We also played a lot with colors. We did a lot of the red and the blue. The red was symbolic for Sam. And if you read the movie, I talk about this a little bit more. But we played a lot with symbolism, and the first scene is basically a foreshadowing for the entire film, and that white light that comes out actually is part of Sam. When the next scene is Sam, the sister. When she comes in, everything sort of becomes, out of
That was so stark.
harmony.
The
Yeah.
difference, because it was, watching it was like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
And two totally different scenes happening. That was really, I liked that. That was really well done. It was really cool
thank
how
you,
how you were setting these things up, how different these sisters are.
Yeah.
And there was some other. I mean, the music was perfect also.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this film right now. I have to see it again and again.
Okay.
Yeah.
The costumes were a big thing for me because I'm so sick of seeing doms always dressed up in latex and leather. There's nothing
was
wrong
nice.
with
Save it
that.
for the stage.
It's hot and it's nice, and once in a while we do that. But most of the time, it's just us. So you see Sarah, my wife who plays Allie, she has a Hello Kitty robe on, which I fucking thought was hilarious. I gave her
I did
panda
like
earrings,
that.
you know, the panda earrings?
Yeah.
We had this joke that was like she was the saddest girl to ever wear panda earrings. She's like weeping and the panda's just kind of like in her ears, huge. And then, I'm just wearing like a kimono thing that she got from Target, who knows? But they're still having a great time.
Yeah.
It's not like a blindfold from a fancy store. It's just a thing they found. And I put a lot of thought into those little things because they're just people who have kinks and they want to keep things spicy.
Well, there was something you said in the, if you rent the movie, there's 3 additional commentaries that Astrid will give. And you said something that it was so simple, but it stuck out so much. You just said, doms are people too.
Right, yeah.
And you made that so clear with just, they weren't wearing leather or latex. It was just like they're at home, just.
Right.
And again, I think that was like part of, I think it was an effective way to I hate using that word, but normalize.
Right. No, I know what you're saying. Yeah, because
Well, that it's not always a production. Is the
Yes.
thing. It's just like sex isn't always a production. You know, when you blindfold someone or tie them up, sometimes you use the tie from the drawer or, a pair of nylons or just any common thing. It's not
Whatever's
you just,
around.
you just have this big trunk of kink. That's not always true.
I have a trunk.
Yeah.
Maybe you do, and that's
Yeah.
fine, but not everybody. But
Yeah.
I like the idea that it's not always a production when you do this or when you have this interaction. It's very, I don't want to say normalize either because it's not the right word.
It's not.
It's
Mainstream or
No,
Not even that,
Just,
just-
It's humanizing it.
Yes.
It's like
Yes.
you're not a thing that's like I think when people think of domination and submission, they think that you have to be all in,
Yes.
and you have to go to the dungeon, and you have to whip each other.
Yes.
blah, blah, blah.
It's always a
But there are-
transaction, or
but
it's
it-
always.
Exactly, and it can be entirely your thing. You can sit down with your partner or partners and discuss literally exactly what it is that gives you pleasure
Well, see, that's the
and
thing
that
that's
doesn't give you
interesting.
pleasure. And
There's-
that's what I'm trying to say with this whole film,
Yeah.
is that you have to talk about it, and you have to
I was just,
figure it
when you
out
said
and
that,
then
I was going to
decide.
react that a lot of couples have trouble negotiating
Yeah.
sex in general, saying, hey, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, you do this every time and it actually turns me off more than it turns me on.
Right.
And people have to be receptive to one another, to that in any type of relationship or intimacy, specific to nothing,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Because what I have experienced from past relationships that have been vanilla, you know, I came out as a kinky person when I was 23, 22, so I'd already kind of been around the block. I don't know, I started young, so, oh yeah. But I was like, oh, what's this? You know, it was a new thing, and I talked about it with my partner, and she wasn't into it, and it was just a disaster, you know. But then I knew this isn't right for me, and then I was able to live my life in a way that now is quite pleasant, because we had a conversation and it worked out. But what I found was that if you don't discuss those things, people become passive aggressive, and that's a way of communicating, and it becomes a standard tool of communication, being passive aggressive, and the silent treatment, and those things. And we have banned those things.
And that's also where, like, fooling around or cheating, or the idea, like, even if you have an open relationship, the idea of cheating or violating you and your partner's boundaries and rules in that relationship can happen if you're not communicating.
Absolutely.
Well, see, I think that's the similarity between the BDSM lifestyle and polyamorous relationships is, at least to me, what I know is there's
They talk
a
about it.
ton of communication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like way more than
You have to.
And yeah,
normal
you establish the
couples.
guidelines for the relationship, and it's not cheating unless you break those rules.
Absolutely.
And
And the rules were broken in the movie.
That's what it is. And then we see that the power dynamic is no longer valid because the contract is broken. So Ali says, you do not have the power to reign over me. And that's the way of saying to her mistress that, you know, you broke the contract. Until we settle this, we can't go on like this. So it puts things in halt.
Like, not to be a spoiler, but when that happened,
Too late.
well,
Everybody knows.
yeah, but oh shit! No, but when that scene happened, when the contract was violated, Bobby was this, you know, up until this point, this strong woman just was like, like a puddle. You were a puddle, and actually in that scene, when your sister was telling you it's gonna be okay, when Sam was like it's gonna be okay, and had you go return the urn of ashes, honestly, I laughed because you looked like a little kid stomping back, like, fine, I'm gonna do this.
Oh, that reminds me. I've got to put up this. I'm making a blooper reel to add to the thing. And there's this one take we did, and this was a chaotic day. I mean, there were construction everywhere. They were building 3 houses, because this was sandy territory, so like all the houses were broken. So they were rebuilding all the homes. On that one day we were filming.
Of course.
Of course. And so it was very crazy, and I lost my mind for a little bit. So I'm coming out of this, like, you know, sad scene, and she's supposed to be high on coke, so she's kind of like wired up and also sad, but she doesn't know what the fuck's going on. And I just started, I ran like I was in the wilderness with the urn. And then my first AD was like, Astrid, what are you doing? You're running. What are you doing running? And I just ran, and I put the urn down, and I was running like a kid. Like, and it was, I made it into this funny thing, and I completely forgot what the hell was going on. And so I'm going to put that in the blooper reel.
You should.
It's hilarious. And then another thing was that they kept telling me, you know, because it looked good with the light, to put the urn right here. And I didn't think about it. And then in the editing room, I saw, holy shit, she put the urn right in front of the fucking door, and the minute she opens the door, the mother is going to be absolute
Everywhere.
dust, just gone. But I found it funny, so I was like,
It is funny. It was a little, because you know what? It came across as a little vindictive.
Right.
Like, fuck you, Aunt Laura.
and I just picture Laura opening the door and seeing the most precious thing in her house.
The most valuable thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
boy.
So it worked out in our favor. But that was something we did not intend to do.
It worked,
There
though.
it
It was very funny.
When it works, it works.
Good.
Just want to take a minute to remind the viewers, you are watching Talking About. I am John Griffith,
I'm still Cara Kilduff.
and we have some very special guests that are with us today.
Are you here, Jenny?
No, not yet.
Oh.
I'm reintroducing the show because this is going to be 2 parts eventually.
Oh, sorry, I'm hearing things. Welcome to the light, Caroline. We have Astrid Ovalles, filmmaker, director, like Superwoman, and also another Superwoman, Stormy Leather, who is also performer, artist, jack of all trades. Like, I guess you have to be. We're artistic people, so we do a lot. These ladies do a lot. Is that the telephono? That's
It might be
Spanish.
very soon.
I knew it. Sounded familiar.
But we're going over a few things. I'm spacing right now, so you take over.
All right. Well, we're in a few minutes. What time is it?
It's just about the time.
Jenny!
Yeah.
I would like to introduce a dear friend of mine who is a professional dominatrix to add to the conversation, my dear friend Jenny. Hello.
Hi.
To my right is Astrid, and to her right is Stormy.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
And I'm John.
And to my left is John. Are you watching on Faceplace?
Well, I was, but I turned it off so I could call.
Oh, okay. So we were talking about, get you up to speed a little bit, we were talking about how Astrid's film kind of normalizes BDSM relationships, but we don't like to we're not liking using the word normalizing these relationships.
Humanizing.
Yeah, humanizing sounds much better.
I'm so smart. I came up with it.
You're so
entirely
smart.
my idea.
That's why she's the writer, you know what I'm saying?
She's wicked smart, hey. So, Jenny, a question for you, because we were talking earlier about people I guess censoring you in a way, Astrid,
Yes.
about the whole kink thing. But I was wondering, Jenny, what your thoughts might be about prejudice from people that don't understand the lifestyle, maybe your experiences.
Well,
It's a lot.
2 hours? I mean, in my particular experience, my life has been very compartmentalized. So domination has been on one end of things, and the rest of my life has been on the other end of things. And they sometimes meet, but not very often. They meet in the queer community more than anything. I have a regular life with a family and a child and, a job and everything, day job. But then I do these domination sessions. I've been doing this for 26 years now. And in the past, I don't know, almost 20 years, I've been going to what started out as lesbian kink parties, and now they've just sort of transformed into queer kink parties as part of the place where the two selves meet. And, I went to a good school and took all the feminist studies classes and sat through a lot of discussions that I found really troubling. I think that where the problems happen is in dogma. When people subscribe to one particular type of feminism and want to silence all the rest of other people's experiences.
Yeah.
And I think I wanted to respond to Astrid's post, your tweet that you put out earlier in the week about that you were having a little trouble being accepted by the lesbian community because of the kink element in your film. Mm-hmm. And it's truly unfortunate because you can make arguments on both sides, and people certainly have had bloody arguments about it, and I don't think there's a resolution to that. But I do think that intersectionality is where things get really interesting, that you can be a mother and a dominatrix, that you can be a lesbian and be in a BDSM relationship and not be disempowering yourself, but in fact empowering. When you bring up the question of consent and negotiation, you're giving the ultimate power to the person that you're playing with. I don't think that it takes power from women in any way. I don't think that it reinforces patriarchal structures. I think power dynamics exist in all relationships, whether you're talking straight, queer, or otherwise. There's always a constant shifting of power between people. The difference in a kink environment is that you're actually negotiating it, and you have rules to follow. And to me, that seems a lot saner than what you were talking about just a little while ago about passive aggression and sort of hiding your feelings and not being able to discuss things. So I don't see. I feel sorry that people are not as open as I would like them to be to your film because of this ancient feminist discussion that isn't really all that relevant anymore.
Is it fair to say, or is it oversimplifying it to say that consent is power?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's that simple. I think if a woman says, "I want this, I like this, these are my limits, don't overstep my limits. I'm telling you, I enjoy this," listen to her. And if your partner who's willing to do that, who's also into it, and who wants to give your partner pleasure with whatever sex you're playing with, I think you have to listen and you have to say, okay, I enjoy this as well, or I'm willing to try it. And then you make a contract, and it doesn't have to be that big a deal. It's just a conversation, really, that can happen. In some cases, you can have an actual contract if you really want to protect yourself. You know? And that's fine, too. But the power is in consent. And, you know, that's why oftentimes you have a safe word, and oftentimes you can, if you're in tune with your partner, like I am with mine, sometimes we're playing, like we've been playing for many, many years, and so all of a sudden I notice she's feeling a little off, and I'll stop immediately and I'll say, is everything okay? And that comes from caring and from love and from a place in which although she surrendered her power to me, that gave me the responsibility to care for her, which means that with great power comes great responsibility. So you're not only taking, you're also giving so much, and it's a beautiful thing if you enjoy it, and if you're an adult about it and you converse about it. I think it can be very pleasurable for everyone, and it has nothing to do with taking away from women or reestablishing patriarchy.
I don't think so either. I don't think being a submissive and being a feminist is mutually exclusive or in any way.
No, definitely not.
And I think that a lot of times when you see sex in any way on TV or in movies, it's very accepted in a certain way. But I feel like it's almost weird when women, even lesbian women, partake in something that's not loving,
right,
or tender, or romantic,
Well,
and then somehow there's something wrong with that or masculine about that,
Yes.
and so you can't be a feminist if you enjoy those things.
Yes.
And I feel like that's such backwards feminism.
Well, there was a scene in the movie between the two sisters talking, and Bobby said to Sam, she said, it was the whole, I want to show you my weird conversation, and she said to her sister, I want to hit her, and I want to hit her hard. And her sister was like, oh, but Bobby was just being honest. Yeah. And maybe I guess maybe that's what it is people that are kind of giving you fever about it, maybe they just don't understand the honesty that's coming from all of that.
Sure.
Can I jump in here? I have something to add. So this idea about, being shocked at a woman wanting to hit someone, to my mind, that's what reinforces a patriarchal structure, saying that a woman shouldn't act out in a physical way. And one of my observances in the kink, BDSM, queer kink community, I was exposed to something that I had never seen as a pro-dom, which is rough body play. Women that are getting into wrestling and pushing and kicking and things like that. And the first time I saw it, I was kind of freaked out because I said, wow, we don't do this at the dungeon. What are they doing? And the more I thought about it and the more I talked to people, I realized this is extremely empowering. Most little girls love to play rough. They love to wrestle. They love to play rough games. And there's a certain point in a girl's development where the adults around say, you can't play like that anymore. Yep. And it's not okay to be a girl and do this. And I feel that, people who engage in rough body play or people who are experimenting with impact play, they're reclaiming a part of themselves that was put aside by someone else. So I think it's powerful and empowering more than anything.
Agreed. Jenny and I were texting back and forth today, and she was like, oh, this is all Andrea Dworkin's stupid legacy, or whatever it was you said. And that was just, It's so funny to me. Like, I'm so glad that you called, you were able to call in and be a part of this discussion. I find it so fascinating.
Yes.
And Jenny's actually the reason, I texted this to you earlier today, but she's the reason why, I mean, she's been doing this for 26 years. We've known each other for a very, very long time, much longer than that.
Yeah, don't say how long. Don't say how long.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to say how long, but she's like one of my ride or dies, and she's the reason why, you know, I was able to ask questions, and, you know, it was just not a big deal. And, you know, Jenny, you're why I know about this lifestyle and why, like, I understand it, because you and I would have conversations about it, and it makes, you just explain things. And, that's why I wanted you to call in, and why I'm happy that you're here and you're here and you're here, is that we can maybe open people's minds a little bit if they didn't know anything before.
And learn, because like I'm probably the most vanilla person in the universe, or at least in this room right now. And it's like my mind is open to this. It's just it's not what gets me going, and that's fine.
But you can admit that, and I wish that more people could admit, like, I don't like something, instead of trashing it or saying it's bad for children, or you're you know, a bad name for feminism. I wish we would step away from that and go, you know what, I just don't like it, it's not my thing, I don't understand it, but more power to you.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, why does it have to be this either or?
I had to learn that too.
Yeah.
I think we all have, you know. I think in a lot of ways, it's like, you know, and it's hard. I think as you get older too, it's hard not to poo-poo things that other people like. I mean, it could be just as simple as like
Pumpkin spice latte.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what? Let those bitches enjoy their pumpkin spice latte and get off their backs.
Stormy.
They want to be
Exactly. Preaching.
Yeah. And go
But you know what I'm
back.
saying? It's okay to not like things, but it's not okay to project your unlike of something onto an entire group and to make assumptions and to
Kink shame.
exactly. Don't
shame.
kink shame.
Yeah, and I was going to go back to your point where you said we're kind of becoming the thing that we wanted to step away from, which was, you know, dividing ourselves and not respecting things that we don't understand. And the only thing you have to really do is listen. You don't have to do it. You don't have to practice it. You don't have to do anything. But just listen. You know, listen to people who are doing it. And when I am asked to talk about submissives, I think it's very risky, because people who have been abused and who have been victims of abuse, non-consensual actual abuse, often look at DS in a very cautious way. I have family members who've been raped and who look at my DS relationship and they kind of get reactive over it. But that's something we look out for and we respect and we understand as a trigger, and we treat it carefully. So I think that you have to take that into consideration, but with listening and understanding and giving the power of the word to the submissive, and you say, I'm not going to speak for her, because I don't want people to think that I am saying, oh, she likes these things and whatever. You know, she looks young and sweet and innocent, and sometimes we do like little play. You know, you play the mom and play the little. It's role play. I'm not a mother to anyone, but but sometimes people see that and they think, can this girl really speak for herself? And it's horribly insulting to my wife, who is a genius in my eyes.
And that was brought up in the film, and I loved that. I loved that when Sam asked her, so what's your deal, kiddo? And she spoke up and said, I don't like that.
Exactly.
That was like, Jenny, you gotta watch this movie, because it's...
Actually, Jenny, stay with
want
us.
to.
Stay with us. We have another clip that I want to roll since you're here. So we're going to jump to that clip right now and take a look, and we'll be right back.
All right.
Number 3.
Every time I tell the truth, it's no
Excuse me.
Why do you do that?
What?
Say excuse me when you really want to say my name.
Oh, out of respect, I suppose.
Would you like to say something in its place?
Like what?
You don't mind if I have a drink, do you?
Of course not.
Would you like one?
Sure.
Why don't you call me mistress? I'm gonna hear you say it.
Mistress.
And how does that feel in your mouth?
Feels good. Mistress.
And we're back.
Yeah.
Jenny, are you still here?
I am.
So that was an interesting dynamic.
Yes.
That was the beginning of the relationship.
That was the beginning of the relationship, and the reason I put it in that space was because that's when Bobby began to lose control. That's right after Allie says, you know, you don't have the authority to reign over me anymore, and she remembers when she had this, euphoric feeling of power, of finding a submissive. I don't know if you feel this, but when you find a submissive who you're attracted to, I feel it gives you like a godlike, like an ambrosia kind of feeling, and you're just like, oh, I can dominate this one lady if she lets me.
This one lady.
Hot. And I just wanted to write, first of all, a scene that was hot in a way that wasn't sex, you know. People are so hungry for sex scenes, and sometimes the best scenes I find are psychologically stimulating in a sexual way, because those are long-lasting. Sex sometimes can end with orgasm or dwindle with orgasm, whereas if you have a DS relationship, I find that the dynamic is kept alive by all the psychological stuff
It's
behind
sensual.
it. Yeah, it's sexual in the way they talk to each other. I was very purposeful when she says, would you like one? And she says yes, and she doesn't give her one. And that's her way of saying, you'll have one when I give you one. And you can tell they're both aroused by it, and then Bobby kisses her and then takes it away from her. And it's foreplay, and it's DS, and it's not even that physical. But I wanted to show sex in a way that wasn't physical, because there's so much more to women's sexuality, at least in the way that I have experienced it, that is a lot more intense when it begins in your mind. You know, you can have sex with a really hot lady and it's all well and good, but if you've been thinking about it for so long, and just little things that they did, and this little gesture, the way they touched you, or even, you know, a way in which they took something from you, or they made you want more, I think that those things are difficult to portray, and I wanted to give it a shot. And I think they happen very often, and they're hard to articulate because they're felt more than they're said. So that scene is sort of what makes Bobby start to think, like, did I fuck up, you know? And she did.
She fucked up.
Well, she's, yeah.
Well, so that was the other thing. Like, Jenny, I wanted to ask you about this too. So in the film, like, after Bobby fucks up and breaks their contract, and the power dynamic shifts, and then Bobby asks to be flogged. And so, do you find? I mean, it's a continuum, no? Where sometimes you want.
Yeah, I think sometimes people who haven't had a lot of experience in DS think that the rules are very rigid, like that the submissive always gets spanked and the dom is always doing the spanking, and sometimes that's true, but I have found that sometimes I like pain. I've been a fighter since I was a kid. I love martial arts, I box, I do karate. I enjoy pain very much. So I actually have my submissive hit me, you know, and I'm still in control, but I'm getting what I want. And first of all, there are endorphins, which is very much a physical reaction to pain. And second of all, she was harmed, and she gets to release some of that aggression in that physical way, as Jenny was saying, which is commonly thought of as something masculine. Where it's very satisfying for somebody. If you hurt me in some way, maybe I want to punch you in the face. And then you have a contract that says, okay, sure, give me a black eye. I think it's going to be hot, as long as you don't put me in the hospital, and maybe, you know, if you hurt me, put some ice on me or something. you talk about it, and then it
Now,
happens.
see, this is funny because Stormy and I were talking about smashing each other's faces tonight.
I thought that was kinky.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure, but now
So, we just haven't seen each other in a while, and
Right.
so, I mean, that's interesting.
That's your dance.
I've learned something about myself. Actually, I said
I agree. I think that it has to be on a continuum. If you're going to top a person, you should really know what it feels like.
that's what I
and-
wanted to ask you.
Nearly every pro dom I know is a switch in their personal life, or even submissive in their personal life, and it's where they go to do their job, and then they come home and do something different. But it makes them better at their job when they go back to work because they know what it feels like. And I think it's entirely possible to be 100% top and also 100% masochist, as you were saying. Was it Astrid that said that? I'm not watching, sorry. But,
Yes.
but yes, you can top from the bottom and get flogged by your submissive sometimes.
Yeah.
And, obviously not in a professional realm, but in your personal life, 100%.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then there are a lot of things that grow, like you were saying, things change. We didn't try that until later in our relationship. Personally, speaking from my personal experience, I felt kind of hesitant to ask her to whip me because I thought, is she gonna think I'm not dommy enough, And I was like, she's maybe gonna think that I'm not as hot. And then when she did it the next day, she was like, I really liked hitting you because it looked like you were getting so much out of it. So it wasn't the act of hitting me that was turning her on. It was the fact that she was giving me pleasure in the way that
Again,
I
it's like
said
any other
I-
sex. It's like hopefully, when you're even not doing, BDSM sex or
Yeah.
anything like that, hopefully when you're just having your vanilla sex, you're thinking about the other person and what's going on with them and what's getting them off, as well as yourself.
Yeah.
That should always be a thought, not just you. And I think that's, it's just as important in that area.
course.
So it's just the same as, to me, any other sex. When people enjoy these things, is just, like you said, things change, and sometimes you like this, sometimes you like that, and just your partner knowing that they're getting you off.
I mean, that's very hot.
That's hot.
It doesn't
So
matter
I
what you're
love that you
doing.
thought that she didn't think you were going to be hot anymore.
Well, I was just kind of like, like she thinks I'm this like really strong lady. and-
Entire.
Yeah. Suddenly I'm just like bent over, and she's like, no, it went fine. I didn't have the fox.
You just tested with the birthday spanking first, just to test the waters.
Yeah, we did a lot of that. We were into needle play for quite a long time,
Wow.
and that's actually one of my favorite ways to experience pain is with needles.
Okay, well, like
love that.
actual, like puncturing is like going through.
Yeah, when you go to the epidermis and then you hit that nerve
Like the
area,
okay.
and then you kind of thread them, and you can make little art figurines.
Right, I
and
have
stuff.
friends that do
Yeah, it
basically
becomes
the human pincushion on
Yes,
stage,
yes,
and
yes.
they go, they do the little needles
Yeah.
through, and it's a nice little,
Yeah.
like almost like a patch of metals almost.
Yeah, and some people do, like, they put them in and then they thread ribbons on them and then they make, like,
Yeah.
flesh courses.
Have you ever tried hook suspension?
No, I'm
Do you ever want
scared.
to?
Jenny,
Wait, what was the question?
hook suspension. Have you ever done it?
I'm scared of it.
No, I've been present when people are doing it, but I've never done it myself.
Agreed, I have
That's
not done it.
a little beyond my scope.
I do have friends that when you talk about needle play and stuff like that, I
Yeah.
wonder if you've ever, ventured into
No.
thinking about that or wanting to experience that. Or
No,
even
I'm kind of like one of those people who likes pain, but not
on a
too
very
much.
minimal.
Yeah, just enough. And I like to be
More
in
pricks
control
than
of that.
hooks, yes?
Yes,
Okay.
more pricks than hooks. Absolutely.
I think that the place that people get hung up a lot is that pain is bad.
Right.
Pain
Yes.
is just another intense sensation.
Yes.
And if you take the fear of, actual mortal harm out of it, you can find that it makes you stronger.
Well, that's
I mean, anyone who's sitting there with tattoos knows that. I'm talking to you, Cara.
Pain sometimes feels really, really
Yeah, watch your mic.
Well, the other thing too is I had a friend who was a fire performer, and the one thing he taught us was pain is fine, damage is not. There's a
Right.
difference between pain and damage.
Yes.
Right.
And I
But I mean, if you look through, world history, people have used physical trials over and over again as ways to grow. And these cathartic experiences happen when you put your body through an ordeal. And for a lot of people in the kink scene, that's what it is. It's attaching an intent to a physical action. You live through it, you come out stronger, you've bonded with the person that you did it with. I mean, I don't see any losing points in that.
Exactly. Jenny, we're just about out of time. Thank you so much for calling in. Really appreciate
it. It was an honor. I hope that everything goes well. I hope your film just takes off like crazy. I'm going to tell everybody I know.
Oh, thank you. It was
you.
very nice talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, Jenny.
Bye-bye.
Astrid, where can people find out more about you in the film?
Just roadofbygones.com. That's very simple. We have everything you need to know on roadofbygones.com.
And Stormy, your information?
You can find me on Twitter as Stormy Leather NY and on the Instagram as Stormy Leather NYC because my last one got ripped off.
Oh, yeah. I hated that.
Yeah, so we had to start all over again. That's where you can find me.
Yeah, that's right. We lost the Talking About Facebook page.
What?
Well, a long time ago. We had like 60,000 followers, and
I lost it.
But
somebody
I'm so
had
glad
to.
I finally got to
Anyway,
meet you.
yes.
I'm a big fan of yours.
I stalk you on Twitter all the time.
I stalk you too.
Thank you so much. And you can find us online at talkingabout.info. All our information is out there. You're at the Cara Kilduff on the Twitter.
You can find me on the Twitter, on the Instagram, and that's it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, both of you. I'm John Griffith.
I'm Cara
Thank you,
still.
And we will see you next year because have a great holiday season. This is our last live show of the year. So thank you so much.
That's